So we're going to talk about rainwater storage and treatment. So we're going to talk about tank sizing, so how big a tank do you need, where do you put it? We're going to talk about our fabulous first flush system. The treatment of the water that you get, depending on what you're going to use, you might treat it differently. Makeup water, we talked a little bit about that. Overflow management and winterization. In this part of the world, winterization is critical. So, tank sizing. Depends on two big things. The climatic factors, how much rain we're going to get. If you're living in Saskatchewan, where you get 10 inches of rain in the summer, you need to worry a little bit less about how big your tank is than if you live in Eastern Ontario, you get 10 inches of rain in 5 minutes. What you're going to do with the water, if you're going to use it for domestic purposes, like I said, we're only talking peripherally about that, you might need a different size tank than if you're just using it for crop irrigation. There's two ways of figuring out how big the tank is. You can look at, there's something called a specific detailed water use analysis. It's part of the gobbledygook in that book I was telling you about. It's tables B1 and B2. You look at what crop you've got, you look at how much rain you've got, you look at about 50 different things, how fast the rain comes, how often the storms are, all kinds of stuff like that. Figure it all in, you pop it into an equation and it pops up an answer at the end. Or, if you're lazy like me, use the generalized area-based tables, which tell us in Eastern Ontario, for a garden of our size, we need 2,000 gallons. You go look it up, bing, bang, boom. Oh, that was easy. So, being lazy, that's what I did when we started talking about designing it. Tank materials, you can use almost anything for a tank. I've seen steel tanks used, I've seen bronze tanks used, I've seen fiberglass, plastic, concrete, steel, all kinds of stuff. In terms of economy, a big tank, anything over 3,000 gallons, probably better use a concrete tank. If it's under 3,000 gallons, poly tanks are considerably cheaper. If you're going to bury it, a concrete tank is usually better than a plastic tank. You can bury plastic tanks. If you're going to bury a plastic tank, we'll talk about it a little bit later, you have to be careful that you get a tank that's designed to be buried, because they aren't all designed to be buried. If you're going to use it for domestic, you have to make sure that the tank is rated for potable water. Some might have, there might be some leach, whatever they use as a mold release when they make the tank, might not be good for domestic. You just have to make sure, if you're going to use it for domestic, which we are not recommending, you have to be able to make sure that the tank material is rated for potable water. So, where are you going to put this tank? The tank needs to be where the water comes from, pretty much. You don't want to pipe rainwater all over the place to get it from the roof to the tank. So, best right where the water is going to be harvested is where you should put your tank. If you're going to have a makeup water system, you don't want to have the tank, one end of your property and the well at that end of the property, because then you've got to run a hose, for 3.5 miles that you don't want to run over with your lawnmower, or have, the dog chew.
And that's what we did here when we were testing our tank. We hooked up the hose because we weren't hooked up to the eaves trough system yet. And we had like 250 feet of hose running over the tank.
Which is like,
yeah, so it wasn't flowing fast, but
it did fill it up over the period of a day. It filled it up enough that we could test it. And the other thing you have to worry about is overflow, because there will be overflow. If your tank is full and it's raining, you have to get rid of that water somehow. Burying tanks, if you're going to bury the tank, one of the things you have to figure out is where all the utilities are. So where's the hydro lines, if there's hydro lines buried? Are there gas lines? Is there electrical lines buried somewhere? Is the plumbing from the well somewhere? You don't want to be digging all that stuff up, so it makes it difficult. If you're burying the tank, you want to be able to get an excavator wherever you're going to put the tank. So don't put it out in the middle of the bush somewhere where you can't get the excavator in. Even ours, ours is above ground, or it sits on the ground. We still had to be able to get an 8-foot wide, 12-foot tall tank wherever we were going to put it. So we had, and the room for the tractor to drive it around and turn it around and all that kind of stuff. So, like you can see here, this guy's got a lot of space around his tank. He's obviously thought that well, that if, I need to be able to get in and around the tank. I'm gonna have lots of space. Frost protection, if you're burying a tank, you don't have to worry about it. If the tank is above ground, you do have to worry about frost protection. So, an above ground tank. They use them a lot for domestic water systems, not so much for irrigation water. But it's the same thing. An above ground tank, you want to be able to get, if it's indoors, you need to be able to get around the tank. Emergency provisions. What happens if your tank springs a leak? You now have 2,000 gallons of water in your living room, unless you have a system for taking that water away. If you're not putting a tank on the ground, for instance, if you're thinking, well, maybe I'll put it in the attic. Our tank weighs 20,000 pounds when it's full. It is heavy. So if you're going to put a tank indoors, either should be on the ground, like slab on grade, or an excavated basement. If it's not, you need to talk to an engineer and get an engineer to say, okay, this is what you need to do to reinforce the floor, because it'll go straight through a floor. Not a problem at all, because they are quite heavy. If you're putting a tank outdoors, which is what we did, it's the same thing with access. You want to be able to get around the tank in case you have to work on the pump or the drain or any of that kind of stuff. You want to be able to have enough room to work around it. And in our case, security was a problem, not a problem, it was a concern, because they had had incidents of vandalism here, and we've got a $500 pump, and we've got, $150 or $200 of other infrastructure sitting there, and a $2,500 tank that we don't want wrecked.
Yeah, and the safety concern of somebody maybe climbing up on the
That's
tank,
right.
falling off or falling
in, which would be even worse.
That would be awful.
So we built a building around it.
Yeah.
There's a manhole at the top.
Yeah.
You can actually get inside the tank.
Yeah. So,
Which sometimes you have to do. I've had to do that a couple of times to get inside a tank. And if you're trying to squeeze through an opening and it's this big, a guy my size, it doesn't work very well. So anyway, security, even you know, on a home, you want to make sure that if kids are farting around, there's no way they can get involved in it. Okay, first flush system. So here we get to talk about first flush systems. Why do we need a first flush system? As I said, the roof accumulates all kinds of stuff. It accumulates leaves and stuff you don't necessarily want in your water. So that's what a first flush system does, is it takes a certain proportion of the water that comes off the roof. In our case, we take the first ½ millimeter of rain and throw it away, because that's going to wash our roof off. We have a steel roof. It'll make sure that the remaining rainwater is clear. If we had an asphalt roof, we would have to throw away the first 2 millimeters of rain instead of the first ½ millimeter of rain. So we'd have to throw away 4 times as much. Because the asphalt roof, the roughness of the roof means that the gunk that falls on the roof is harder to wash away.
Is that automatic, or does somebody have to load
No, they have to.
turn valve?
It's not a turn a valve thing. You can buy kits for first flush systems. The problem with ours
Is it automatic? Or?
it's kind of automatic. Yeah, a tank fills up and then blocks.
Do that every
Yeah,
time.
no, they're set up so they function autonomously rather than automatic.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, you don't have to be there.
Yeah.
Most of the you can buy first flush systems. eBay has all kinds of them,
Yeah.
but they're typically about 25 gallons the amount of water that they need, that they maximum capacity. And in our case, no, 25 liters, and in our case we needed 250 liters to be able to get rid of that water because of the size of our roof. So we ended up making our own. There's basically 3 different components to a first flush system. There's the tank. We have it's an aluminum tank from a carpet cleaning outfit actually. It's about 200 liters, 250 liters I think. So we have a tank, we have a diversion mechanism. So the water, the first 200 liters, yeah, whatever it is, the first quarter inch of rain that falls, we're diverting, and then after that quarter inch of rain, we're going to start putting it into our tank. So we have a diversion mechanism. That's the part that you buy from eBay, or you can, bubble gum and baling wire one together. That's what we're doing, because we're bubble gum and baling wire people. And the last thing is this is sort of a schematic of one. Here's the storage tank. This is the eaves trough right now, and this is the little diversion mechanism. So it's diverting water into this tank, or once this tank is full, it will start running into here. And what they've done, you have to be able to drain the water out of that tank, because if it rains today and you fill a tank out of your diversion tank, and then it rains again tomorrow and your diversion tank's still full, then it doesn't really help you enough. So our tank has a little teeny hole in the bottom, about a 3/16 inch hole, so half the size of a pencil. And the water just continually dribbles out. And so we first thought, well, how are we gonna turn that off once we've diverted the amount of water that we figured out we need to divert? It's gonna be a nightmare. And then I read somewhere that you shouldn't block that drain. That drain should be allowed to flow. So there's always a little bit of water continually going into this diversion tank. And with that little bit of water going in, we're talking maybe 2% of the entire water you're harvesting, that keeps this gunky water from getting back into the main tank. So there's always a little bit of loss through the bottom of that tank. And you have to be able to figure out what to do with that.
I'm just gonna ask you, what do you do with it?
Well, ours will run into our soak away tank. So we're gonna build, it's sort of like a septic tank. It's a big hole in the ground full of rock. And any overflow from the tank, from the big tank, will go in there and it soaks away. And so that's what we'll do with the, pardon me?
It's like a dry well.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is exactly what it is. It's a dry well. So the water will soak away, it won't erode anything, it won't sheet erosion, it won't be all kind of, it's just like it's a big pit in the ground it's about a 4-foot cube full of crushed rock.
Is it covered?
Yes.
Because you can't have anything over 2 feet covered.
Well, it's not
Water thing.
a hole. It's not a hole, it's full of rock. So it's 2 feet of crushed rock. And the rock provides a space for the water to take out. So the water will sit there and it'll gradually leach into the ground.
It'll never overflow.
Well, yeah. It's possible. That's a lot of water though. Like 4-foot cube is 64 cubic feet, which is roughly 400 gallons. It's about 400 gallons.
Depends on what it's dug into too, whether it's clay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna be an issue.
Yeah, because it's
More
gonna
of them.
soak away, and if the water table's.
Yeah,
The water table is high.
If
Yeah,
the water
we-
table's right high, then you're gonna.
Yeah, well then,
not
yeah,
rise.
no, exactly. And that's one of the things about soak weight is it has to be somewhere where the water will run away.
Yeah.
If you want to run it out into the ditch, the municipality may have something to say about that. So in our
So it
case,
wouldn't be anything nice running into a ditch out of any farm fields.
no, but if they find that you're diverting rainwater directly into a ditch, they will have a chat with you. Trust me. Because they don't like that. They want to at least hit the ground. So treatment of harvested rainwater. In our case, if we're just using it for irrigation, a little screen like that is pretty much all you need. In our case, our tank will act as a bit of a settling basin. The foot valve of the tank is probably about that much off the bottom. So we're not going to take all that dump at the very bottom anyway, so it's not really an issue. If that's all we're going to use it for irrigation, we're probably good because if we're using it for micro irrigation, we're going to filter it anyway. We do have a filter on ours. If you're using it for potable use, which we're not advocating at all, you have to talk to public health because they have standards for all that kind of stuff. There's lots of ways of treating rainwater.
What's green there, that's at an angle, you say, sort of.
I think it's sort of duck.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
leaves and stuff like that fall to the bottom.
Here. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so probably the junk will roll off.
yeah.
And even if it's sat there for a while, this incoming water will lubricate it enough to slide off.
Because that's what's here, the screen's at an angle?
Nope, there's no screen on ours yet.
Okay.
There will be.
Yeah.
That's not, it'll just be a piece of hardware cloth, they use included hardware cloth, 1/4 inch or something like that, to keep the big chunks out. The little chunks, yeah, we're not gonna worry about it.
Do we have to clean out the leach tops on an annual basis, like we spraying?
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Yeah.
We're thinking that in season, it should be okay. We'll have to clean out the diversion tank. I would
Person that
expect,
draws the short straw.
yeah, that'll be Brian.
Yeah, so it was afraid of.
So, how do you treat this stuff? If you're gonna filter it, to get rid of the kind of murkiness, you can use membrane filters, which is what this is. This is called a membrane filter. That's just a very fine screen.
I'm like a medium Switzer.
Yeah,
Is it self-pacing or do you?
that one is not.
I don't have
So how often
one.
is that?
Ah, we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Okay.
We'll talk about that. That's part of the regular maintenance. So you can use membrane filters like that. The other one is a little different style, same idea though. Or if you're using a lot of water, and a lot of water like 10,000 gallons a day, which some people might use, sand filters are much higher capacity. Turn it in for Angie, there you go. Sand filters much higher capacity. They can filter thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of water an hour.
Is that like a Brita, would that be a sand filter?
Pardon me?
What's a sand?
No, a sand filter is typically a thing about this big around and about that big, and it's steel, and it's got about 500 pounds of sand in it.
That'd be like a swimming pool filter.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
And the water goes in the top and filters through the sand, and all the gunk gets hung up in the sand, and it comes out the bottom super clean.
And then-
Most
and then you
municipalities
backwash it when you wanna
That's
clean it.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And sand filters are what municipal systems use to clean drinking water. They use sand filters because they're highly efficient, they're easy to clean. All you do is turn a valve on for X number of minutes, and the sand, the water goes in backwards and comes from the bottom and floats all the crap out the top. So those are two filtration options. For disinfection, which is mostly micro stuff like bacteria and algae and gunk like that, there's four basic systems: UV, chlorination, ozonation. So ultraviolet light, which is this little gizmo here, that's worth quite a bit of money. I think they're worth about $700 or $800 a pop. There's chlorination, which is what municipal systems use. Ozonation, which is kind of expensive, but you don't use a lot of chemicals for it. The ozone is generated by an electrical current, so the operating costs are cheap, but the installation costs are expensive. And reverse osmosis, which is again quite expensive and fairly low capacity. A reverse osmosis system that delivers a gallon a minute would be quite big. So if you want to take a shower and you're using reverse osmosis water, forget it. But most of the disinfection part, that's concerning potable water, and we're going to talk much more about that. So makeup water, we talked a little bit about makeup water. We're going to use makeup water because if we don't get sufficient rain, like if we have a really long dry spell and we don't get sufficient rain, we'll have to do something to be able to water the garden. So we'll have probably a half a liter a minute garden hose running into our tank. You can get little discs of ceramic that have a hole in the middle of them. You put them in a garden hose and it will deliver X amount of water per minute. So we'll just put one of those in a garden hose that delivers half a liter of water a minute.
Is that like the PSI thing, I believe Valley system, is that what that thing is? You just attach it if you can,
I'm not familiar with that.
I think it says PSI on it. And it apparently monitors how much water goes through, so you're not flushing it right through or.
That sounds more like it's just a water meter. This isn't. All this is it's literally it's an obstruction in the hose with a very small, accurately drilled hole in it. That's all it is. I'm not familiar with it.
Well, if it says PSI, then it's gotta be how much water pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is volume. This is strictly
This is the
volume.
yeah.
It has nothing to do with the
I
pressure.
had some volume and stuff.
No, you could. Like I say, I'm not familiar with their stuff, so. Where's your makeup water coming from? In our case, we're going to bring it from a well, so we have to get the water from the well to the tank. So we'll have to install a line to do that. How do we make sure that when we're putting the water in, we don't fill the tank to the point where it starts to overflow and we're wasting our water? So we have to have some way of controlling that. You can have manual control, so Ralph over here turns the hose on, goes and has a couple of cups of coffee, does a little bit of weeding, goes back to the tank, oh yeah, it's almost full, and turns it off. Works great, fabulous, till Ralph stubs his toe and has to go to the hospital. Then it's not quite so good. So you can put float switches in, which is, everybody knows what back of the toilet looks like, that's a float switch. So you can put a float switch in, so when the water is at a certain level, the water starts coming in, and as soon as it reaches another specific level, it turns off. And those can be either manual float switches, like a toilet tank, or you can get really fancy-dancy electric ones. that will turn valves on and off and stuff like that. But they're really expensive, and I'm cheap, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna use a toilet tank. Float switch. And the flow restrictors, again, to make sure that you don't pump your well dry. You put in a flow restrictor on that garden hose, and you can run that. Depending on the yield of your well, you could probably run that for a century and not have a problem. The biggest issue with makeup water is you have to prevent any potential water from the tank getting into your domestic system. So if something happens and there's a break in the, like if a pipe breaks in here and we're filling the tank out there, theoretically we could siphon water back from the tank into our domestic system, into the well, and we've now contaminated our well. Not a happy story. So you can put in some very expensive backflow preventers that are like hundreds or even thousands of dollars a pop. Or if you leave an air gap like that, a 6-inch air gap, so your garden hose stops here, the top of the tank is down here. If you have that air gap, there's no way that water will ever backflow into your domestic system, and that's a codified, the plumbing code allows you to use an air gap as a backflow preventer. So it's very important to have that air gap, because you don't want to get crappy water into your water system.
Maybe our system has a backflow preventer as well, it's like the females.
Yeah, but that's only for a garden hose.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Mm.
But
And
I know what
probably-
you're talking about, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know their stuff out, because it's expensive.
Yeah, it depends on what you need.
This place I order from, I can order $10 worth of stuff.
I know, we've had this conversation before, but if you know what you're doing when you go in, but if you go somewhere like Home Depot and want help, forget it.
Yeah.
If you're a woman, forget it twice. So
Well.
it's just easier to order from the company.
So here we're talking about overflow management and what to do with the water that you aren't going to use. We need to do something with it, because we've taken all that water that was flowing off the roof, so it was flowing off, 5,000 square foot area, and it's now coming out of a pipe this big, and it's coming out fast. So we have to have a way of dealing with that overflow if our tank is full. So there's 3 different ways of dealing with that. One is a soakaway pit. Here's an example of a soakaway pit. It's just a hole filled with rock that the overflow pipe runs into, and it eventually leaches out through the soil. If the soil is heavy, if it's clay, it can be a problem. You might have to make it bigger. You have to figure out the infiltration rates. Pardon me. I call it strategic use of harvested rainwater. So one of the ways that a soakaway pit mitigates the effect of rainwater is that it takes all that big chunk of water coming out of the tank and it spreads it out over an area. And it takes a while to soak in. So if our storage tank is full, and we know we're gonna have a big rain event, I'm gonna turn the water on. And I'm gonna run all that water out of that tank as much as I can. Even though our garden doesn't need watering, we have a 10,000 square foot soakaway pit. If we have that water running, we can use that garden as a giant stormwater detention system. Doesn't hurt the garden any, because it just percolates through, because there's such a big area. We're not going to have ponding or anything like that. So we can do that to manage rainwater overflow. You can connect to municipal stormwater management systems, plug it into the storm drains. You need municipal permission. It's going to cost you a fortune. You're going to dig a whole bunch of stuff. Probably last resort if you're sitting on a lead of clay and you can't get anywhere. One of the problems with overflow management is that you can't just run your pipe out into the ditch, because if the municipality finds out, they will fine you because you haven't applied for overflow management. And that's why when you're looking at places like new developments like Barhaven, they have these big ponds where water stays. That's the municipality's way of mitigating flood water getting into the stormwater management system and overwhelming the stormwater management system. Because when it does, you end up with raw sewage in the Ottawa River, which people really get choked about. For obvious reasons, it's not a good situation. So if you have to tie into a municipal system, you gotta talk to them. Because if they do find out, they won't be the least bit happy. Winterization. That's a very familiar sight if you're around this part of the world and you have water in your pipes. They crack. So, Depending where your tank is, you might it changes how you look at winterizing. If you have a below ground tank, you don't have to worry about anything, because it's never ever gonna freeze. If you have an above ground tank, there's two ways of doing it. One is to winterize the tank. So you put an immersion heater in the tank, you heat tape all the possible plumbing and all that kind of stuff, and it should stay warm. It costs a lot of energy. An immersion heater is typically 1,200 watts, so that costs you 2 bits an hour to run for the entire winter season. It can add up. The other approach, which is what we've done here, is to take as much water as you can out of the system. Drain the tank, drain the filter, drain the pump, drain all the irrigation lines, drain everything you possibly can. Because if there's no water, there's no freezing. So, one of the big mistakes that people make when they winterize their rainwater systems is they don't disconnect the eaves troughs. So you've got your tank is empty, it's all winterized, all very nice, and there's 3 inches of snow on the roof, and we get one of those days when it goes up to +10. You don't have 3 inches of water in your tank, which next week when it gets down to -30 freezes. So you gotta make sure in the winter that any of the water that comes off the roof goes into your diversion system. That's the biggest concern about winterizing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that will help you determine how to size things. Again, there's this guidelines for rainwater harvesting, we'll always refer to that. There's a table in that publication that will tell you how big to make the eaves troughs based on some information that you get from Ontario, which is this one. The downspout size, so in our case, you know, the installer of the system, of our eaves troughing, put downspouts in. We're taking those out and we're replacing them with pipe. And it's going, okay, how big a pipe do we need? And there's a calculator here. This calculator will tell you how big a pipe you need based on how much water you need to move in a certain time. So that's one of the design tools that we use.